It was in 1994 when Disney began development on Dinosaur. After spending several years creating an entirely new animation software, the film was made but wasn't met with the praise I'm sure Disney were hoping for. I tried watching Dinosaur a few years ago, but it took many attempts to fully commit to finishing it. I don't think I've ever felt so bored watching a Disney film in my life. Unfortunately, Strange World ended up being a huge box office flop. Yes, the film was extremely boring and forgettable, but its failure was probably the confirmation Disney needed to give up on original storytelling completely. Kelly Marie Tran killed it as Raya, but unfortunately everything else in the film fell extremely flat. With Don Hall attached, this should have been good. I'm going to assume that Raya and the Last Dragon was messed up with higher ups at Disney after messing with the director's creative vision. There's clearly elements here that worked, but were poorly mashed together into a bland and ultimately forgettable film. I don't think Chicken Little was awful, which might have something to do with growing up with the film as a child. It hasn't aged too well though, especially from an animation standpoint. But we have to cut Disney a little slack since this was their first 3D animated movie. Got to say it, I kind of liked the sci-fi elements and the baseball scene. So yeah, maybe Chicken Little isn't a good film, but it's certainly better than everyone seems to give it credit for. Bolt was one of the earliest Disney films to be overseen by John Lasseter. I'm glad Bolt kind of saved Disney after being one of few 2000s Disney movies to make a profit, but the story just wasn't interesting to me. In the day and age of people seemingly wanting to hate on anything Disney puts out, Wish could have been the film to get people back on board with Disney as a whole. At first, it seemed a good idea going back to basics of what made Disney's earliest films so beloved. But in the end, Wish was Easter eggs the movie with no originality of its own. I absolutely despised Asher's friends. Fine, I get that they were supposed to represent the Seven Dwarfs, but I found them to be incredibly unlikable. Frozen was advertised as the next Lion King. It's not the Lion King by any means, but it's a good enough film with many cliches like a poor twist villain and an underdeveloped plot leaning too much into romance. Frozen 2 somehow manages to surpass the original, thanks to stronger songs and a darker tone. My main complaint is the underutilisation of Kristoff. He was dumbed down to Anna's love interest at the expense of getting any character development. Meet the Robinsons is an underrated gem which nobody seems to talk about anymore. Goob, aka the bowler hat guy, was way cooler than this story required him to be. When Disney announced that the director of Zootopia was directing Encanto, I was already sold. Encanto's high energy, catchy songs and fast pacing makes it an easy watch for any occasion. Tangled was actually Disney's most expensive animated film they've ever made. It ended up costing over $260 million to produce after being in production for 6 years. Tangled's music is very strong and Mother Gothel is one of the stronger recent Disney villains. If you didn't realise that Big Hero 6 is actually based on a Marvel comic, I wouldn't blame you, not many people do. It's a love letter to classic Disney paying homage to classic tropes for a new generation. Everyone else I've seen on YouTube seems to dislike Ralph Breaks the Internet. I'm not the biggest fan of how it was set in the internet, but that didn't take away from Ralph and Vanellope's great chemistry. I found the story to be decent and kind of like the old My Disney scene, even if it was clearly just an advertisement for Disney IP. Probably my biggest complaint is the underutilisation of Fix-It Felix and Calhoun. The writers could have given them a more significant role. Ron Clements once again hit it out of the park, creating a timeless classic with incredible music and beautiful animation. Moana balances out comedy and drama better than any other Disney film. 2016 was hands down Disney Animation's best year in history. Both Zootopia and Moana are fantastic, but when it comes down to personal taste, Zootopia slightly edges out Moana. The mystery was very hooking and the emotional moments were spread out just right. I also thought that Nick and Judy were great leading protagonists. Disney threw a crazy concept at the wall, where video game characters come to life and hang out after the arcade closes. Wreck-It Ralph was considered a risk at the time, as it's not exactly on brand with Disney's other films, sort of feeling more like something Pixar would put out.